مقفت اشتل بس نار شبني قراث قاطا يهنجلوي تتقوش ران قفتان هقرح نحلر دقان سححنا كنا فلايك أسترقل ثرنا مقلونا فواه تولو رجلا سحاح يرى الصوتب قفن فنك قطع شوك سحاح نقف الطرف تاقنا فرنو هذا طاثنق الوايوه هنقلويك ثرق جرقاف تاق فوقا يفرر سحخنا مقراج رون قايزات وانجلي هكثل سحح يقاف انثران فتان يها حق الوناف شد من الرجرة هنقط واه لا لا كينج لوي سحح زوتهم ما قفلان قفت شتران صحة شران تقف شركنا تنقلير مقلوي فتاق تولو يوها قطن قلوين الرطلات تسحح فتاق
The origins of the Illithid, often known as Mind Flayers, are among the most debated and mysterious aspects of Dungeons & Dragons lore. Multiple theories, often interwoven and revised across various editions, paint a complex picture of their ancient genesis. These theories contribute significantly to the understanding of their unique physiology, psionic capabilities, and their relentless drive for dominion. One prominent theory posits that the Illithids originated in the Far Realm, an incomprehensibly alien plane of existence that lies beyond the known multiverse. This realm is described as a place where reality itself is warped into aberrant forms. The Illithids' emergence from this extra-dimensional space thousands of years ago suggests their fundamental nature is inherently alien and hostile to linear reality. Their unique biology, formidable psionic powers, and even their peculiar disregard for conventional chronology are often attributed to this otherworldly provenance. Another thread is their origin story points to Penumbra, a star-sized artificial disk world. This concept, explored in sources like Spelljammer and later integrated into Forgotten Realms lore, suggests Penumbra was the Illithid's cradle world, from which their iconic Nautiloid Spelljammers launched to spread across the prime material plane. This theory offers a more concrete, albeit still enigmatic, point of origin within the multiverse. More specific to the Forgotten Realms star system, the planet Gith, with its distinctive gas giant-like ring, attracted the attention of the undead elder evil Atropos, thanks to the widespread death and destruction caused there by the Mind Flayers. Atropos just annihilated all life on the planet, of course, leaving it a dead and wretched rock, which spurred the Mind Flayers' arrival on Toril, sometime just after the arrival of the dwarves and elves, when dragons still dominated the surface of the planet and just before the arrival of the giants. Perhaps the most intriguing and central to the concept of a time war is the theory of the Illithids as temporal refugees. This theory, heavily featured in 3.5 edition's Lord of Madness and subsequent 5th edition texts, posits that the ultimate Illithid Empire existed at the very end of time, Facing inevitable annihilation due to the heat death of the universe, the Elder Brains orchestrated a mass chronal exodus. They travelled back in time, approximately 2,000 years before the campaign present, in many D&D settings, to escape their predestined doom. This audacious act of time travel not only allowed them to establish their empire in the distant past, but also created a causality loop. Their arrival in the past often leaves behind paradoxes, such as ruins older than any native civilization, bearing unmistakable Illithid motifs. But the truth is far more complex and disturbing than any of these kernels of lore. Each of them only holds a part of the truth, and I'm sorry to say, not one source of official Dungeons & Dragons canonical lore will reveal the full picture to you, no matter how deep you delve into the past 50 years of published documents. I would like to say that what I'm about to reveal is purely a work of fiction, that any resemblance to our own reality is merely coincidental. That is what I would like to say. First, let me warn you. There are concepts which I'm about to explain which are genuinely dangerous. So I must advise that any who is prone to dissociative disorders of any kind should not venture any further. If you do so past this point, well, you were warned. To begin, let's address the most obvious question. How can anything exist outside the multiverse? What exactly is the Far Realm? At the very end of time, from our point of view, the universe is an almost empty place. However, right at its very heart, sucking in every other particle over a staggeringly vast period, there exists the most enormous black hole imaginable. Its reach extends out across nearly infinite space, like a gentle slope that becomes steeper and steeper the further one rolls towards the bottom, until finally all things plummet past the point of no return, beyond which, again, from our point of view, the normal rules of time and gravity break down, or so we are led to believe. The truth is, these fundamental forces are the least understood of all. Their workings shrouded from us all by a veil of misconception. In the most simple terms, a dimension is just a direction of movement. We exist in 3 dimensions, and when you consider that as the universe collapses into the singularity at the heart of the black hole, everything is compacted, including the dimensions themselves. As you move further away from the singularity, they unfold, so that at the very edge of no return, there are no less than 10 dimensions. Any being that exists there has degrees of movement that is difficult to comprehend. They can move instantly from any point in the universe to another, like we would step one foot in front of the other. Not only is time also a direction they can freely move through, but also different probabilities, what we call alternate realities, in which events took a different path. So, not only is one universe falling into the singularity, in actuality, nearly every other universe, every other reality, is doing exactly the same thing, compressing down to a single dimensional point. As this energy flows only in one direction, it passes through these layers of ever more folded up reality. According to Stephen Hawking, at the edge of black holes, due to quantum uncertainty, virtual particle pairs pop into existence, borrowing energy from the universe. When this occurs on the edge of a singularity's event horizon, some of these virtual particles will fall into the black hole, but others will escape, and through this slow influx of negative energy, the black hole will eventually completely decay. This is just an observation from outside, but what is going on inside? Well, we're inside the black hole, on a kind of moving surface, heading from the center, the singularity, which is like the past, towards the edge, the event horizon, like the future. Time feels like it's flowing backward toward the singularity, because that's where everything collapses. The future is full of different possibilities, like choosing between different paths. Tiny quantum bits, virtual particles, pop up and escape from the center, creating ripples that split time into tiny moments. These ripples make reality change, letting us pick one possibility, like eating an apple, while others collapse into the past. This also answers a question of how the Slard Lord Yol appears to be moving backwards through time. He isn't. Everyone else is. The closer Yol is to the singularity, the start of time from our perspective, the more powerful he becomes. The far realm is simply a point far enough away from the singularity that extra dimensions of movement and existence are normal, which is so difficult for beings in lower dimensional states to comprehend that it invariably leads to madness when exposed to it. It also explains why the Illithids have such an alien perspective on time to the rest of beings in the D&D reality, and why their species, along with all the other aberrations from that region, are so dangerous, not only because their perceptual awareness transcends the limitations of our limited dimensional movement, but also because they are adapted to an existence where multiple probabilities are simply directions of movement. So, we call these exceptional abilities and awareness psionic powers. This blending of alternate realities is also one of their greatest weaknesses. It led to their eventual defeat and is the source of the greatest threat to their existence that has ever occurred. But we will get to the cult of Thoon a little later on. From their enigmatic origins, the Illithids rose to establish one of the most terrifying and expansive civilizations the multiverse has ever known, the Illithid Empire, also known as the Empire of the Mind. This empire was characterized by unparalleled psionic might, brutal subjugation, and an insatiable desire for universal control. At its zenith, the Illithid Empire was truly vast. It spanned the astral and ethereal planes, controlled countless worlds in the prime material plane, and even extended its influence into portions of the outer planes. Their power was so absolute that, according to some lore, even the perpetual blood war between the Bartizu and Tanari in the Nine Hells was temporarily put on hold as these infernal factions recognized the Illithids as a greater universal threat. The empire's structure was highly centralized, with each colony ruled by an elder brain. These elder brains were often networked via psionic astral conduits, forming a vast civilization-wide noosphere or collective consciousness, epitomizing the Illithid's singular vision. Central to the Illithid imperial doctrine was the concept of the grand design. This overarching objective sought to replace all sapient free will with the collective consensus of the elder brains, effectively eliminating individual thought and, crucially, temporal uncertainty. More on this soon when I get to the Mind Flayer gods. The Illithids were master bioengineers, not only subjugating but also modifying races for their purposes. Their primary slave caste consisted of the Gith, ancestors of the Githyanki and Githzerai, who were used for labor and sustenance. Beyond the Gith, they also bred various biothralls, such as Europhians and Alhoons, or the Illithid liches, and mind witnesses, which are beholders transformed by Illithid tadpoles, all serving the Empire's grand purpose. Despite their overwhelming power, the Illithid Empire's downfall was ultimately orchestrated by those they enslaved. The Gith rebellion was a prolonged and catastrophic slave resistance that culminated with the warrior Gith unifying the thralls. The Empire's reliance on psionics ironically became its undoing, as the Gith developed innate anti-psionic techniques. The system-wide revolt led to the mass slaying of Elder Brains and civil wars within Illithid strongholds, shattering their central authority. The victorious Gith, however, soon fractured into two distinct factions: the nomadic, militaristic Githyanki, who settled on the astral plane, and the contemplative monastic Githzerai, who established enclaves in limbo. This internal conflict among the Gith prevented the total eradication of the weakened Illithids, allowing remnants of their empire to persist, albeit in a drastically reduced state. This civil war marked the beginning of the end of their absolute dominion. The concept of an Illithid time war is not a conventional conflict fought at a single point in history, but rather a complex series of temporal maneuvers, hidden conflicts, and attempts to alter destiny. It stems directly from their temporal refugee origins and their desperate efforts to avoid a cataclysmic future. Recognizing that linear time would invariably lead to their extinction, as experienced in their original future, the surviving Elder Brains initiated a chronal retreat, utilizing advanced nautiloid chronos drives and even tapping into higher dimensions, allowing them the power to engineer cosmic structures that are normally the province of Immortals and the Great Old Ones. The Illithids somehow folded the astral and fled billions of years into their own past. This mass exodus established their presence roughly 2 millennia before the typical D&D campaign present, creating a profound paradox and historical anomalies. Multiple temporal strike forces arrived at slightly staggered dates, seeding hidden enclaves in the Underdark or adrift in the Astral Sea. Their primary goals in these looping incursions were multifaceted, but their primary goal was the re-establishment of their dominion in ever earlier epochs along the time stream, free from the Gith rebellion. They also recognized that as the prime material plane of 4 dimensions limited their ability to observe and move instantly from any place they wanted to, their most obvious solution was to ascend to a state of godhood before entropy eventually claimed them. Knowing full well that the hero Gith was a pivotal figure in each iteration of these chronal loops, they always seek to eliminate the warrior Gith and other key historic figures before they could inspire the catastrophic revolt. Sages often label the resulting hidden conflicts as the Time War. These battles are not typically waged on open battlefields in the prime material plane, but occur in psychic dreamscapes, sub-astral currents, and short-lived alternate timelines that collapse when Elder Brains or their temporal agents are defeated. Most surface realms remained oblivious to these ongoing chronological struggles. The Illithid's constant manipulation of time has profound implications. Their very presence in the past, or their escape from a future cataclysm, implies a continuous struggle against their own impending doom. This non-linear history means that understanding their true nature can be challenging, as the unique perception of time leads them to view the past as fluid and the future as inevitable conclusion of present actions, rather than a fixed path. The Time War is thus less about conventional battles and more about manipulating causality itself, with the Illithids attempting to rewrite their fate and secure their ultimate dominion over the multiverse. Ironically, this is much easier for them to do closer to the end of time, that is when they appear in the distant past, due to the natural collapsing of extra dimensions as reality becomes more folded in on itself closer to the start of time. Following the catastrophic Gith rebellion and the fragmentation of their empire, the Illithids retreated to hidden enclaves, predominantly in the Underdark. Despite their diminished stature compared to their imperial height, they remain a formidable and insidious threat in the multiverse, patiently awaiting as the natural expansion of all life and matter into far more complex and evolved forms unfold into higher dimensional states. So, this explains why they relentlessly study and experiment on other life forms, as they are in fact measuring and gauging the progress of the multiverse expanding as they move through the ripples and closer to the event horizon of the black hole. The closer they get to the end of time from their perspective, the more freedom they have to take advantage of extra-dimensional movement and control. However, they still face many limitations that hold back the full power they once enjoyed, the incomprehensible chaos of the Far Realm. Are you with me so far? Now is a great time to take a moment to enjoy a tasty beverage from a high-quality ceramic mug available from my Fourthwall store. Today, Illithid colonies are typically found in subterranean lairs as they detest sunlight, not only because of their alien physiology, but the very sight of a star, most likely destined to one day collapse into singularity, is a constant reminder that they have still a very long time to wait before they inevitably return to something more like the mighty overlords they once were. The heart of every colony is an elder brain, a massive sentient organic construct that functions as the central intelligence and authority. Individual Illithids are hermaphroditic and reproduce through a gruesome process known as seromorphosis. This involves implanting a tadpole hatched from their eggs into the brain of a sapient humanoid. The tadpole consumes the host brain, devours it, and transforms the host body into a new Illithid thrall. This process is how new mind flayers are created, perpetuating their species. All mind flayer thralls believe that they are destined for a state of near immortality, as once they reach the end of their lifespan, their brain is extracted and its substance melded into the elder brain. What the elder brains are concealing from them all, though, is that this process utterly destroys their individual personality, with only their memories and cognitive potential being added to the elder brain's vast abilities and storehouse of understanding. This fact is quite often the secret that the warrior Gith exposes in order to spark a furious civil war that has a devastating impact on the mind flayers as a whole. Illithids sustain themselves and fuel their immense psionic powers by consuming the brains of intelligent creatures. They view all other intelligent beings as mere chattel, suitable only as thralls, slaves, or sustenance. Driven by an insatiable desire for universal domination, they believe themselves to be the multiverse's ultimate rightful rulers, destined to bring everything under their control. And central to this is their god, Ilsensine. Ilsensine stands as the undisputed supreme deity of the Illithids, often referred to as the Great Brain or Tentacled Lord. Ilsensine embodies the ultimate form of mental domination, magic, and knowledge. This greater deity is lawful evil, perfectly aligning with the Illithids' societal structure and ambitions. Ilsensine is typically depicted as an immense, disembodied emerald green brain from which countless nerve ganglions extend, coiling through space, time, and the planes, constantly tapping into all existing knowledge. As you would imagine for such an arrogant and tyrannical species, the Illithids don't worship Ilsensine with traditional prayers or temples. Instead, their reverence is a form of aspiration. Ilsensine represents the pinnacle of what the Elder Brains might achieve after eons of growth and absorption. Every Elder Brain dreams of eventually merging with Ilsensine's omni-consciousness, making it less a god to be prayed to and more an ideal to be pursued. This aspiration revolves around the idea that all thought is one, all thought must be subjugated, and perfect intellect is the only true perfection. But While their god's mental power is omnipresent, it's not omniscient, as certain realms are beyond its reach. Ilsensine may be present in many different realities, but there are others where the course of events took a very different turn, but are still collapsing into the singularity at the very beginning of time. So, from the perspective of the beings moving outward, these possible realities are outcomes they are trying to avoid at all costs. One such alternate reality is the source of the cult of Thoon. But before we get to that, there was another Illithid god who needs a quick mention. Maanzecorian was an intermediate deity of knowledge, philosophy, and secrets, a significant figure in the Illithid pantheon before his demise. Known as the Flayer, or Keeper, he was depicted as a 10-foot-tall Illithid with purple-green skin and yellowed tusks, often adorned with a silver gem-studded crown. His alignment was also lawful evil, of course, and he shared the belief that Illithids were the natural rulers of all planes. However, Maanzecorian's approach to knowledge differed slightly. He valued learning from other minds through conversation and debate before their eventual consumption, making the act of devouring brains a more refined experience. Maanzecorian's realm, called Rictus, was a marble and jet palace located on Chamada, the second layer of Gehenna. However, he was slain within the astral plane by Tenebris, the temporary divine form of the demon lord Orcus during the Dead Gods era. The death of Maanzecorian on the astral plane had the unusual effect of scattering his essence in the form of untold number of collected secrets into the minds of those nearby, driving most to utter madness upon contact. Maanzecorian's death solidified Ilsensine's position as the undisputed supreme god of the Mind Flayers. Despite this, a few clandestine Flayers still revere his memory and desperately seek out these scattered secrets, very much at risk of facing severe persecution at the tentacles of the more orthodox Illithid colonies, who are driven by their elder brain masters to stamp out any further philosophical divisions within their society. Far beyond a mere difference of opinion about the art of consuming brains, the sudden and unexpected arrival of the cult of Thoon represents a major threat to the grand design. Thoon represents an entirely different future, and those mind flayers who are a part of it are the very different breed indeed. Ask one of them to describe Thoon will result in the seemingly nonsensical answer of Thoon is Thoon, and Thoon is all, which leads many scholars to describe Thoon as more of a concept, perhaps a divine being, or, from what little they can gain from the study of Thoon technology, as some form of living equation originating from the far realm, and that is about as far as they care to venture down that line of research, fearing the utter madness that could befall them all too easily. Thoon's disciples are fanatically dedicated to two main goals. The first is the gathering, creation, and use of quintessence, which is like the psionic version of the liquid magic created by the Netherese Empire toward the final days of their height. The cult of Thoon ultimately aims to reduce all matter to a pure psionic substrate. Their second goal is the eradication of other Illithids who are not part of their mission. These disciples deviate significantly from mainstream Illithid society, replacing elder brains with vast extraction engines and creating aberrant creatures such as the Shadow Flayers, the Thoon Thralls. They not only bioengineer other species to suit their purposes, but they use advanced inorganic technology to infiltrate, disrupt, and control other species. Any elder brains who detect the operation of the cult of Thoon will stop at nothing to hunt them down and eradicate them, just as the cult of Thoon is relentless in its mission to destroy all elder brains as priority targets. Due to the Mind Flayers' common use of mind-controlled thralls, often outnumbering the Mind Flayers themselves, the inevitable arrival of Gith and her catastrophic rebellion is the fate they've had a very hard time avoiding. This reliance on thralls for labour, defence, and even as food sources is integral to their survival, but the cult of Thoon may just be the solution to this fate. The Mind Flayers simply can't see it this way though, as their society is a strict hierarchy, with all individuals subservient to the elder brain. What acts as the collective will and memory of the colony? They are vital to the Illithid's constant drive to calculate and the best path through the grand design. The elder brains direct their actions, plan their strategies, and process information, ensuring the hive mind's continued pursuit of its goals. The elder brains can see many things, but they can't manage to see themselves as a source of their own problem. Nor will their god Ilsensine ever permit such a thought to spread, as to remove the elder brains would cause a paradox that would basically remove the god from existence. The Illithids possess remarkably advanced technology, particularly evident in their original Nautiloid spelljammers, not the wooden replicas encountered in the low ebb of their empire in the current time period. These few remaining original Nautiloid ships are not only capable of interplanar travel, but possess Chronos drives for temporal displacement, critical to their Time War efforts. More recently, in Baldur's Gate 3, they popularized the concept of the Astral Touch Tadpole technology. These are biological chronal sheaths that rewrite a host's future memories, representing a direct battlefield innovation stemming from the Time War. This allows for insidious manipulation of individuals, making them unknowing agents of Illithid will. So, the cult of Thoon and its rampant control of humanoids has resulted in a kind of arms race and cold war between the two very different factions of their species. Today, the Illithids colonies continue their experiments and pursue their new grand design in various D&D settings. Examples include the enclaves beneath the Chittle in Faerun and Eberron's Khyber, within Exandria's Underdark, and even an immortal Nautiloid, the C-92, orbiting Ravnica. The Gith, their ancient enemies, maintain a permanent multiplanar guerrilla war against the remnants of the Illithid Empire. This enduring conflict ensures that the Mind Flayers, though scattered, remain a significant and ever-present threat to the multiverse. The quest for domination undeterred, even though it has become much more complicated than ever. And that is where we draw the subject to a close, for now. My name is AJ Pickett. Thank you very much for your support, and I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, thanks for listening. I'll be back with more for you very soon. Special thanks to Garth Mindfleather, who commissioned this video. Just a reminder that anybody who becomes a member of my Fourthwall with an annual membership gets to commission a video much like this one on a topic of your choice. Until next time.